All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. Today, we're going to be working on a project that I've got on our order, trying to get it knocked out. We're going to take this piece of oak that I have left over and this piece of dowel, and we're going to make something really cool using the CNC, the lasers, and a few hand tools. So if that's something you're into, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, so the first step, guys, is I've got to know how big the material is. We're going to design this base on the CNC, but there's actually other ways that you can do this. You can literally do this with a bandsaw, a scroll saw, table saw, chop saw. I mean, there's any saw, you can just about do it. What we're going to do is we're going to be making a shape, the shape of a baseball, like home plate. And then we're going to be engraving some stuff on it, adding a dowel to it so that it's basically creating like a little ring holder for the championship rings or whatever that kids get when they play ball. I don't want it to be too small because I want to have a decent enough area to engrave. Seeing as I've got this material available to me, we're going to actually make the design fit on this material, but no bigger, and then just put the dowel in the middle for the rings to set on. So that's what we're working with. But the first thing I got to do is measure this. And like I said, if you don't have a CNC, guys, you can make a lot of this stuff with traditional tools. I just like to do it with a CNC because it's easy. And that way, if somebody says, hey, I need 10 of those, it makes my work a lot easier just using the robot. And it's cool. I like using the CNCs. So that's what we're going to be doing now. Is I'm just going to measure this out, write it down, and then we're going to go over to VCarve, lay the file out, and hopefully get started. All right, guys, over here at the computer of the Clack Shack command, and we're going to go ahead and run this file, get everything set up. I will be using VCarve Pro. This is version 12, and that's what I typically run with my machines. So what we're going to do is go over here to create new file. And if you're following along and you've never done this before, I'm going to try to show you the steps that I take. But if you've done this 100 times, then feel free to fast forward. This is going to be a single-sided job, so we're just going to click single-sided. I did measure out my material already and wrote that down. I recommend it. It saves you a lot of steps. So 185 is going to be my width. And the height is going to be 585. That's just this piece of material. Technically, I could set the width and then just leave the height varying because, you know, next time I may have a different size piece of material. The thickness is just under 19.2, but I'm going to go with 19.2 just to kind of avoid that onion skin underneath there. Typically speaking, when I use the tape especially, that'll have me enough to make it all the way through the material, but not enough to make marks on the spoil board underneath the bottom. So I'm going to be setting my 0 to material surface. For this job, I'm going to do bottom left corner because that's just what I'm used to and using the corner probe and everything. So we'll do that. Material settings, I'm going to change this to, this is kind of like a medium oak. So we'll go with medium oak and hit OK. So this is kind of, sort of what she has sent me, but with a name on it. Now, this one to me, I'm all about trying to make my stuff functional. And to me, this pen, if you fill this up with rings, that base at some point is going to get a little wobbly. So our base is going to be bigger than that, but we're just going to use this piece of material that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the file up to where the front and the back edge of the file work to limit the size of it. So that's what we're designing. I already have one of those in a Lightburn file. So let me roll on over to Lightburn. I had an order for a couple of those. And so let me get over here. It may actually be in my sports. Wait a minute. Yep, there it is. So there's the shape. So what I need to do is just select that. And that's actually the laser file we'll be using after a while. So I'm going to hit that, and I'm going to export that, just that base or home plate or whatever, as an SVG. I'm going to send that over to a download folder, and we'll come back to that. See, here's one that I made. Well, here's one I made for someone else. It was round and then had the circle in it. I actually designed that in Lightburn and then sent it over to VCarve. This one, I thought about doing the entire design over on the CNC and putting all these little notches in it. I guess we could. You know, we could. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and export. Let me just delete this. I won't be needing this. I won't be needing the name. Won't be needing that logo or these files. So I guess I could go ahead and export that over to the machine and go ahead and do that with the CNC. Let me get this exported over and we'll see. So let's go back into Vectric. I'm going to import that file. We'll bring that one in. Where's it going to put it? There it is. All right, so there we are. We have yeah, we could do that either way. I could see me doing that with a laser or doing it with a CNC. That actually might look cool doing it with the CNC. I am, however, going to rotate that around. So we'll rotate that 90 degrees. Yeah, it still fits. Okay, so that's the size that I wanted. So this outer cut right here is going to need to be a cut, and it needs to be the full depth of the job, which was 19.2 thick. And using the Jenny bit, it's going to be running 6 passes. I'm going to run this one outside the area. That way we can, it's just basically going to be trimming the edges off of here. I'm going to be taping this down so as to not have to worry about any of my clamps to be in the way. I'm going to do a separate last pass. I'm going to tell it to allow 0.5 millimeters to do this. That way we can get a smooth edge. Not going to need tabs because I am going to be using tape, and this is a big bulky design. So will this please lock? So we don't need those. We'll be adding ramps. 10 millimeters ramp should be plenty. And we're going to name this cut. And I'm going to calculate. Well, select our vector and then hit calculate. And what you're going to see now is this is just going to cut it out. Like I said, no tabs or anything. It's just going to cut it out of the material and have that part done. Now, these little lines here, I could see, let me see what we can do with that. I could see doing this as a CNC on this solid material. Now, if this were plywood, I would not do this, but with it being solid actual oak material, it might look good. So I'm thinking we're going to do that. I think we're going to make that into a pocket. That's not going to be a good bit for that. What we could run to make that would be, I could use a ball nose because I'm not want to go very deep. So I could use a ball nose, or I could use a an 1/8 inch end mill probably. I think the ball nose would look better. So we're going to go with, I only want to make this 2 millimeters deep, because if we go too deep with the ball nose, it's going to take forever. So, couldn't go with an 1/8 inch Jenny. Let's see what an 1/8 inch mini Jenny does. Let's see. maybe it'll do enough to make it look like I want it to. And we may even be able to go a little deeper. So we'll see what kind of detail we get. And this is one thing about using the preview function in Vectric, is that you can actually see how well your bit's going to perform. As far as, is it going to make the shape look the way you want it to look, or is it going to cut corners off of it or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that is not bad, guys. I think that's pretty cool. I'm really thinking seriously about making it raised though, but that's going to make this job take a lot longer. Oh, but it would look so awesome. It would really look awesome. Like, it would be almost 3D. Let's reverse this and see what. Let's see what that makes it look like. If instead of doing those, if we just set it up, let's see if that does it, to where, so I don't think it's gonna, well, maybe I won't. Let's see what that looks like. Oof. Oh. Got one little bit of an issue here because of that 1/8" bit. But in the event that we wanted to do it a little differently, that looks pretty good, but that's a lot of engraving, guys. That's a lot of engraving. Let's see what the times look like. I really like the way that looks. 1 hour and 38 minutes. Not very cost effective. All right, let's go back and fix that. Yeah, we can't. We as cool as that appears to be, I can't make myself do that. I would rather do it. I would rather just do it with the laser, or do it the way that we had it originally. So let me shift and remove that and recalculate. Preview the toolpath. Yeah, I think we're going to have to go with that. I do have a name that I'm going to put in there. And I think since, what bit did I have that? The tapered ball nose. I think since I'm doing this part that way, I may just change this whole thing. Make this one big CNC project. Rather than doing it with the laser also. We're just going to do the file this way. You know what? Actually, I can do one of each way, and we can look at it and see. So, yeah. Calculate that. All right, so I'm going to take this one here. I'm going to copy it and paste it. And we'll have one of each to try out to see what we like. I'm leaving at least 1/4 inch of gap right there, I hope. So we'll have one of each. We're just going to do that. I've got enough material that we're going to do one of each. Now what I will need to do is add this shape to my cutout and run that calculation. And this is what we're going to end up with. So I'm going to end up with one that's CNC'd and one that's just cut out, guys. And we'll decide from there. What I do want to do, though, and I fell in love with this bit. Yes, it's a lot of bit changes. So what? But I've started enjoying this little bit right here. So I'm going to set this one to, I went 4 the other day. Let's go 5mm depth. I'm going to put my 1/4 inch radius tool on there. Apply that, and what we're going to do is, once I got to put on for that, for the radius tool, I got to have it on instead of outside. So we're going to set this to But this is going to round over the edge. And yes, I could do this with a router table or with a handheld router or whatever. But I bought a CNC to do cool stuff with. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so you'll see here, and then once that round over bit goes through there, it's going to round over the edges. And I got that guy from IDC Woodcraft. The Genie bit that I'll be using, I got from Cadence Manufacturing. And I will drop some links down below afterwards if you're interested. So with these two, the one thing that I need now is, in order to put the dowel in there, I'm going to need my little hole for the dowel. And these dowels are measuring in a little bit over 10.8 millimeters. Let me go double check. Yeah, 10.8 millimeters. So they're a little bigger than that, but I'm going to undersize it just a little to make sure it stays good and snug. Worst case, we can sand the end of it, whatever I need to do. So set that for 10.8, close it. And what I'm going to need now is I'm going to need to take that, I'm going to hold shift, click on the second guy right here. And then I'm going to tell it to put it in the center of the material. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to duplicate it and then click that one, click that. And same thing, I'm going to tell it to put it in the center. Now, it needs to be up toward the top a little more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to move that 8 clicks of the arrow. Move that one 8 clicks of the arrow, and we're good. I probably should have just duplicated that after I put that in there, but pay no, never mind. We got it done. All right, so I'm going to hit shift on both of those, and I'm going to create myself a pocket. And this is going to, I don't want it to go all the way through the material because it is basically just for the dowel to set in. So the material is 19.2 millimeters thick. So I'm going to set this thing to go 15 millimeters. Well, we do 17 millimeters deep. That should be plenty. I'm going to be using the Genie bit that I'm using to do the cut. We're going to be using it to do this one as well. It's going to eliminate having to do another bit change. Ramp the plunges. This kind of makes it spiral when it goes down, but you don't want to. Let me rename that. I meant to name it before I did that. So now we've got all of these guys set up to run, and this is going to be the entire design. So let's preview all toolpaths here. So there is the finished product, rounded over edges and all. All right, so to do this, we need to save the file. I'm going to do the cut, and I'm going to do the hole, because those two are using the exact same bit. So I'm going to hit save. Visible toolpath to one file. You'll see here it's telling you what bit it's using. This is my post processors for the Spoko 5 4x4, and then I'm just going to tell it to save toolpath. I have a directory on my machine that controls the CNC, and that's where I'm going to save this. I'm going to put me a new project folder in here. I'm going to name this ring holder. And then when I click inside here, this is going to be my first cut, which is going to be ran, and it's going to be the Genie bit. So I'm going to save that. All right. The next one that I'm going to do is going to be the threads, which is going to be, well, actually, we could do the round over next. Yeah, we'll do the round over next. So we're going to do the round over next. We'll make that number 2. So I'm going to put number 2 and use the round over bit. And then the last one is going to be, I need to rename that threads. And the reason I'm laying it out like this, guys, is because in the future, if I don't want to put the threads on one, I don't have to use that. This is the last layer, or the last run. So if I don't want to add the threads, then I just don't run this file. So that's the 3 files that it takes to make this with. So now it's over to the CNC to see if we can make this actually into a product. All right, guys. So what we're going to be doing now is I'm going to put some tape on the back of this because I don't want it going anywhere. This is the X-Fasten tape. I've been using a lot of it in the past few weeks, but it goes a lot further than what you would think it does. And it's really easy, and it saves clamps because y'all saw the other day I killed some clamps and had to reprint. So I don't want to kill any clamps. And with this design and the size of my material, I just decided that this is the best approach to take. So with the size of this piece, I don't think I'm going to need to overload it with tape. So we're just going to run 4 strips. And I think we'll be good. You know what the heck? We're going to put 5 just in case. Being stingy has cost me money and bits before. So there we go. Surely that's not coming loose. So hopefully this will be a quick little project, quick little engrave. Once it comes off of this machine, the only thing that we will have to do is sand it up really nice, and then with the one that I didn't CNC the threads into, we could do that on the laser as well. It's just a matter of preference and the look that you're going for. So let me get myself a piece of the material just in case I need to zero in between, which I will. So if you got a Shipoko or any machine with a slatted base, this is a handy little thing to have. It's just a piece of material that I use to make sure you can line these up with the edge of the MDF right there. Makes it pretty easy, but you can also take that little block and put it in there, and when you swivel your material over, just push down against this block with that piece of material, and when you flip it down, there you go. So it works either way. So we got that on there. Now set to 0. All right. So we've already got the Jenny bit in there, it appears. So that's going to save me from having to do a bit change early on. So we just need to set 0. And we're off to the races, guys. All right, so got it where it needs to be. I'm going to set the 0 using the probe here. And I'll be hitting corner and begin to probe. All right, so that is done. And we have set the 0 on all the axes, so we're good to go. Now all I need to do is just tell it to run the file. This is going to do the cutout as well as the holes for the dowels. And then next we're going to change bits and do the thread. So So let's see how this works out. All right, guys, so after a little bit of clear coating, and I used a can of polyacrylic to put a coat over the material before I do the blackening of the part underneath. And the reason to do that is to keep it from bleeding through. So now I've got to paint the letters and the other little area right here with some black acrylic paint, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, guys, so a little while later, the paint has dried, and I've went at it with some 120 grit on the oscillating sander and sprayed it off with a little compressed air. And that's what we got going on now. So at this point, the clear coat that I put on it before I paint it is gone, because all I did with the clear coat that I put on it before I painted it was because I forgot to mask it. Or, you know, if you choose not to, you don't have to. But I could have masked this with Aura Mask, which is a plastic, like, thin layer that would tape to the surface of this. You can use other materials as well. The problem with masking a lot of times is that even with your best, most vigilant job of masking, you're going to end up with a little bit of tear out around the edges, and so you're going to have to end up doing this approach anyway. So a lot of times, if it's something real simple, it's not too complex, I'll just engrave it and then go after it with the paintbrush. So that's what I ended up doing. And like I said, the clear coat just basically keeps the bleeding down so that when you put the paint down in that recess right there, it doesn't bleed through and start going from, you know, side to side through the grain of the wood, which will happen if you don't seal it with a little clear coat or something before you do it. So now that I've sanded all the clear coat off of it, I'm gonna have to re-clear coat that. But first, I wanna stain this because I've gotta make it match this little poplar dowel, and I've already rounded the end and sanded it and everything. So this dowel is gonna insert into this little hole right here, and that's what the rings are gonna set on. But I've got to stain these the same color before we move forward. So I'm gonna get some stain out and see if we can't make this thing stain. All right, so gonna glove up here a little bit because I don't like running around with brown hands, and that typically tends to happen. But this is a small job. I'm just gonna take my little rag here and cut it into an application rag and then a cleanup rag. Also got my trusty little screwdriver here. This screwdriver's only job in the shop is opening stain, and you can tell it because it's covered in stain. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stain the dowel first because it's gonna probably be a little darker than the wood in the beginning. I'm hoping it's not. I'm gonna go through here and more or less just wipe it on and then turn right around and wipe it off because I don't want this to get too dark. So not trying to let it soak and darken up really, really dark. And hopefully, yeah, that's got it. All right, so now the trick's to try to get these two pieces to match because the dowel is poplar, whereas the base is oak. So I'm gonna go ahead and, like I said, I'm not trying to make this really dark. So I'm just gonna hit it kind of quick, wipe on, wipe off, not to let it sit too god awful long. But you gotta be careful because if you don't let it sit long enough, you'll have light spots and then that'll really look bad. So get it all situated. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and stain the back of it. I was going to use my little rubber stamp on it and put my logo on there. But I'll probably go ahead and just, before I glue everything together, just use a laser and put it on there. This is a pretty cool little piece. So there we go. That part is as brown as it needs to be. So I'm gonna go with this dry rag and just get all the excess off so I don't get dark spots on it in the process. So there we are right now, guys. All right, so my stick's needing to be a little darker. So now that it's set for a minute, I'm gonna go over it with a little more stain and I'm gonna let it kind of soak in its own juices for a few minutes there. Like I said, this is poplar, and poplar stains really nice. So if I just kind of baste it to where it's almost dripping and let it sit for a few minutes, it'll actually start to get darker. And like I said, hopefully I can get it close enough that it's not gonna really contrast a lot with this oak. That's pretty close. I think that's gonna do pretty nicely. Let's go one more little pat down here just to make sure. So I could go with a little darker stain on this, but I'm scared if I do that, this will be too dark. And I don't want that any darker because I like that lightly. This is early American stain too, by the way, if anybody asked. But I like that color that I get from this. So I think that's gonna be about it right there. Go ahead and wipe this down. Wipe these gloves off, and I'm gonna pick up the base part one more time and just make sure I don't have any big gobs of stain on it anywhere. And especially the top. I'm not as worried about the bottom. All right, so that's got that. Let's clean up the mess. We'll put the logo on the bottom of it real quick and glue it together and spray it. We'll be done. So let's get to it. All right, real quick, over here at XCS, I've got the F1 Ultra powered up, and we're going to go in here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab me a setting. I'm going to set this for black walnut. It's not exactly black walnut, but as far as the difficulty and the method of engraving should be about the same. So we've got the logo in there, and I don't want it too big. And this is one of those situations to where I think that it works out really nice to be able to just drop something in there and put your logo on it. This is one of those applications where a lot of guys that I talk to, you know, they're making small things, or they're making, you know, like custom items. They just want to put their logo on there. This is one of the things that I think a lot of times these the F1 Ultra, some of the Galvo machines kind of get overlooked because they don't take up a whole lot of room, and they add a whole new dynamic to what you're doing. So we've got the focus set with this machine, refreshing the background, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it right smack dab in the middle of the piece. You can see right there. The cool thing about it is this camera kind of gives you an idea of how big the logo is. This is, like I said, this is my little maker's mark, so I'm not too particular about where it goes. I am going to frame it up and over at the machine, and then look at it, just make sure that it's as close to the center as I need it to be, and then I'll send it. All right, it looks good, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and send this over to process. Hopefully the speed and power will work. Like I said, black walnut, oak, similar hardness. This is just a maker's mark. Not too worried about whether it's too deep or not deep enough or all that good stuff. So let's go over and push the button. All right, guys, so it took a little while. I've been bouncing between projects and projects and projects. But all in all, it turned out really well. And I've got one coat so far of polyacrylic on it. And you can see it's just looking pretty awesome. So after only one coat, we're looking pretty good. The engrave on the back, I did that with the F1 Ultra, come out really well. Once I get through coating it, I'm also gonna put some little rubber feet on the bottom of this so that it doesn't slide once it's set on something. But I'm gonna wait until I get all the coats of polyacrylic on it that it needs. And I'm figuring probably 3 coats to give this thing a really glassy look. I kinda wanna go a little overboard and make it look fancy. So there you go, guys. Easy, simple project. Like I said, this is a small piece of wood. So if you have a CNC, even a small CNC like the one I've been playing with today, a 4040 model, you can do these. You may want to use a little thinner material or just take your time with the cut. But all in all, any CNC that I've had here in the shop, I could do these. It might take longer. I mean, whereas this takes, 10 minutes on the Shapeoko to do this, including all the tool changes, it may take you 30 or so. But this is one of those projects that if you just set it and let it run, then once you get through, like I said, put the finishing touches on it and you got it. But there it is, guys. Like I said, simple little project. I think it turned out good. So let me know what you think down below in the comments. And until I come up with another project, guys, that's it for today. So be safe and have a good day.